the April board meeting of Newburgh IDA. Roll call. I'm just going to go from top of my screen to the bottom of my screen, left to right. We have our council, Bob McLaughlin. I guess I'll skip over to Katie too, who's also our council with him. Board member Adam Pollock, Executive Director Sheriff Vickers, guest Philippe Pierre, Board Vice Chair Nancy Thomas, guest Charlie Hubner, Board Member Gregory Nato, Board Member Michael Kelly, guest John First, and our Board Member Chrissy Amato, and obviously me. I think that's it. I don't have any little arrows on the side of my screen indicating that I can go over to the side for other people. Thanks everybody for coming out. I have before me the notice of meeting, so the meeting has been duly noticed. We also were provided the minutes from our March 22nd meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I'll second that.
I'll take that as a second, Mike. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining, motion carried. So is Marlon planning on being on?
No, Marlon's not going to make it, so I'd be happy to deliver the treasurer's report.
The floor is yours, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. The treasurer's report for the IDA meeting, April 12th. Opening balance in the operating account as of March 23rd, $284,211.09. Deposits totaling $12,416.89. Over disbursements in the amount of $278,563.86. For a closing balance as of the 12th of April of $278,563.86. The applications fund remained unchanged in March with the beginning and ending balance of $14,137 over 50 cents. Same thing with the lesser tenant account. Opening and closing balance remained at $2,400. And the money market account opened at $750,000 at $750,077.95. Interest totaling added to the account in the amount of $63.71 for a closing balance as of March 31st, 2021, $750,141.66.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Does anybody have any questions about the report? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I move that we approve the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Nancy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chrissy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, motion carried. I didn't pause very long after allowing somebody to oppose or abstain. I'll take a motion to pay the bills as listed.
I will make a motion to pay the bills as listed.
Second.
Second by Mike. I'll give that one to Gregory. Sorry, Mike.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining, motion carried. The chairman's report. There's not a lot of an update on what's going on with CDAC, except I think it's been within the past month that we released the RFPs for the 3 different properties. To see how that comes down. I will say that we've had a shift in our mindset for the better, if you ask me, where, you know, I think we all sort of have been thinking it, but it hasn't really necessarily like landed. And I believe it did land with the committee, that we really, it's important to recognize the value that there is to a potential developer to be a part of what's happening in Newburgh and where the city's going. So like, that's why a couple of the prior ones we've, in one case, we rejected all the proposals. In another case, actually, I think we did reject all the proposals and we're reissuing it because they were just sort of like not up to the standard that we really think they should be, especially with some of these parcels. For somebody to be able to get a hold of them in this location, and having the history that, for example, the City Club has, things like that, the committee really is committed to having valuable partners in developing those. That's my only real exciting comment there. Nothing, I'm not going to keep talking about what's happening with the county IDA. I think that's all clear from the press and whatever. That's an ongoing investigation. A good person that a lot of us know, Bill Ferravani, who's the director of economic development for the county, has essentially been put in by the county to see what's what from an operational standpoint, since the managing director and now the executive director. The managing director was just a contract with his consultancy, so they terminated the contract. And then recently the executive director, she resigned. You could probably read between the lines on that one. But in any event, Bill, who a lot of us know, to be a person of actual integrity, which is nice, is there to kind of help them sort everything out. That's what's kind of going on at the county level right now. That the new board's in place to figure stuff out. Bill's there to figure out what's going on there, and we'll see how that progresses. That's all the ranting that I will do for the day, at least on this topic. And we'll move to council's report. Bob, Katie.
Well, good evening again, everyone, and thank you for once again for moving the meeting. I think what we'll do is I can share the screen. So I'm going to share my screen on the Scobie Drive project just to get you guys up to speed. You can see that map? Okay. So this is the Scobie Drive parcel, and I just wanted to advise you of two issues that have recently come up with the buyer's attorney as they proceed through the DEC process. So this first issue, this is your parcel here, and this checkered area in the left corner, I guess that's the northwest corner. DEC is proposing to put 2 monitoring wells there for the PFAS contamination, which is potentially emanating from the city landfill, which is contiguous to your property.
I love that you're calling it the city landfill, by the way.
Say again?
I love that you're calling it the city landfill.
Well,
You're calling it the DPW site, but guess what? It's a landfill.
Right. So Dominic and his firm is working with a local Albany attorney, Gary, whose name escapes me, last name escapes me, but he's well known to us here at Whiteman Osterman. And they're trying to convince DEC that the monitoring wells are not required in this part of the property. And so we should have word on that within the next 30 to 45 days. This will require some amendments to the contract. If you recall, I think the original contract required that they start their cleanup work in the fall. It's obviously now the spring. Part of it was delayed. Almost all of the delay has been caused by the pandemic, DEC not really being fully available. And so we will come up with a new schedule over the next really 60 days and present that to the board as part of a contract amendment. The one part of it that is somewhat interesting, this is your parcel here, 15.24 acres, and 2.7 acres of the city landfill is included in the brownfield cleanup agreement that was agreed to back in 2013 and 2014 when there was the prior contract for sale. Dominic's clients, the Clooney's, obviously don't want to get involved with this parcel that's owned by the city and not owned by us.
Right.
In speaking to the engineer, apparently there was some long forgotten reason that this parcel was included. His thought is that there was some city tax credit or state tax credit if a city was involved that they could take advantage of. And so this 2.7 acre parcel was added to the brownfield cleanup agreement. Whatever that program was no longer exists. There's no benefit to the buyer to include this in the brownfield cleanup agreement. And so the proposal will be that we exercise this from the brownfield cleanup agreement with DEC. We'll need the consent of the board when that timing is right. We'll also need the consent of the city, which I don't think they should have trouble with, but we can, reach out. Austin, I'll ask you maybe to let me know who I should reach out to at Corporation Counsel's office. But it should be a minor request. And then once that's done, we can then hopefully the buyers can go forward with their cleanup. Any questions? I just wanted to update the board on that. Clear? Okay.
Yeah, seems normal to me. Yep.
Okay. So the second aspect project that I wanted to chat with you about, is bringing up to speed on, is St. Luke's. If you recall, back about a year ago, there was a proposal to redeem or pay off bonds that were issued by the IDA in 2005 for the parking garage at St. Luke's. And that borrower's name is Community Development Properties. Again, because of the pandemic, primarily because of the pandemic, that transaction didn't close at the last minute. But the lenders with the hospital and Community Development Properties have been working on a forbearance agreement. And that is now coming closer to some action being taken. It's likely that the IDA will have to reissue the bonds that were issued in 2005 because of the parameters of the workout that the lenders have agreed to with the hospital. We have attended a couple of conference calls in the last month by the working group, and we've sent out a tax questionnaire to the Community Development Properties, which is the owner of the parking garage, as well as St. Luke's and their counsel, Rick Dennett, who I've dealt with in the past. I think Katie may have dealt with as well. He's a well-known attorney downstate that represents many nursing homes and hospitals. The game plan is that we would eventually have to reissue the bonds and do a closing probably sometime between now and the end of June. It would require a new bond resolution by the IDA. And so this is really just a heads up that this transaction looks like it's coming. The hospital and the Community Development Properties and the lenders will pay our fees. There's no fees, obviously, with the IDA. It should be a straightforward reissuance of the bonds, which is really just taking the 2005 bonds as were modified in 2010 and reissuing them in 2021 for the balance of the term. And I don't know, Katie, do you remember what the original term was?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they have until 2030 or so. So they're almost paid off. I think there's $12 million in principal left. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. And then the next matter is such that I would request for the board to consider an executive session to talk about an attorney-client matter that may result in litigation. And if you guys could consider that and take a vote, that would be helpful.
All right, I'll take a vote to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
Thank you, Nancy.
A second.
Thank you, Chrissy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carried. All right, all the guests, Cher's just going to kick you into the waiting room, then we'll let you back in after we're done.
Motion carried. Let the guests back in. Those are still around. Do you guys hear that through my headphones?
A little bit, yeah.
No, but I just thought you were starting to dance a little bit, that's all.
Yeah. Tonight I'm your funk chairman. Chairman of funk. That'd be a great like Sinatra cover album, or like have it be all Sinatra songs by a funk band. Chairman of funk.
I like where you're going.
I would like an evening like that. That would be fun.
That'd be something. All right. Where the heck were we? In council's report. Okay. So we made no decisions in executive session to report out. So next up is executive director's report. So Cher.
I don't have anything to report. It's just a lot of moving parts in the background. So we're discussing them throughout the agenda. So I don't have anything to add in particular to any of those things.
All right. So next up is a resolution was disseminated to the board members to issue a deviation notice to the other taxing jurisdictions in substance saying that we are considering a deviation from our UTEP for the Foundry project. And we would be sending a notice to the other taxing jurisdictions to appear at if they want to appear at a public hearing and let us know what they think about it. I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Gregory. It's a resolution, right? So we're going to take a roll call.
And ideally you would select a day for the hearing so you can type it right into the resolution and the notice.
Oh, I suppose we could do that. Do we want to do it? What the time frame is? 20, 30 days, you said?
Right.
So our next board meeting is probably a little bit late. Oh, and it's a public hearing, so it just has to be Cher and I pretty much. Let's do you want to not?
I prefer.
Yeah, what do you think, Cher?
Mondays and Thursdays.
Yeah, I was thinking I could do whatever. I could do
You could do it like the last time where it was like 1 p.m. if that is open for you.
Oh, if it's 1 p.m., then I can do basically whenever, yeah. So you want to do the nearest Monday to 20 days from now? That's 14. So the 3rd, you want to do Monday the 3rd at 1 p.m.?
Well, it would have to be 20 days from the day the letter goes out, which would be the earliest would be tomorrow.
Oh, and that's like directly 21 days. So you want to do Thursday at 1 p.m.? Thursday the 6th?
Thursday the 6th at 1 p.m. Yeah.
Is that okay for you, Cher? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's have it then.
5, 6, 1 p.m. Okay.
All right. So let's do the roll call.
Adam Pollock,
Yes.
Austin Du Bois,
Yes.
Nancy Thomas,
Abstain.
Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Chrissy Amato,
I think I'm gonna have to abstain as well.
Michael Kelly,
Yes.
and is Marlon there to vote or no?
Yeah, I'm here. I will abstain.
Okay.
Thank you. That's 4 and 3, right?
Yes.
So motion carries. Go back to my agenda here. Old business. 104 Washington, we have Philippe and Charlie here with us. I assume they're gonna do a little update or something.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. How's it going?
Update for the board. Hi, everyone, and thank you for your time. I know it's late and you've spent a lot of brain cycles already this evening. We do have an update. We're super excited to share it with you. And share, if it's okay, I'll share the screen. Any questions just before I jump in? I know just if there's something that, okay, great. So I am sharing. Can we see the?
Yep.
We can see the thing. All right, cool. All right, great. So here's the update is we've gotten our zoning board approvals. I think that was the case last time we presented to you, but that hasn't changed. Tomorrow evening, tune in if you'd like to see the full reveal of our project at the ARC meeting tomorrow. I've been in we're going back to the ARC to present a new design for the building after some feedback from the public. And I've spoken to a number of those people, and they will be logging in tomorrow to express their support. So really excited that we were able to absorb their feedback, go back to the drawing table with our architect and designer, and come back with a project that I think is going to be successful. And I've got some previews for you to look at while you're here that even the ARC hasn't seen. Moving on to the planning board, we had our workshop with city staff, the engineer, planning, everybody's on board with our site plan. So once we get approval from the ARC, next week we'll go to the planning board, and if all goes well, we should basically have the clear to build at that point. Let me see. Why my thing is not, all right, well. We have site control of the site. So we have a purchase agreement with the land bank. What's new is we did get a phase 1 environmental done. Nothing major to report there. So, you know, things are looking good once we get past these administrative hurdles. Here's the new design. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot cleaner than it was before. And that's in direct response to the feedback from the community. It was previously 6 stories. It's now 4 stories. It's 15% shorter than it was before. There's the commercial space down on the ground floor. Let me show you kind of another view of it. There's room for 2 commercial spaces on the ground floor. And 3 floors of residential. Here's kind of a shot from the Ann Street. You know, that this was really kind of a concern for the ARC. What does it look like from here? You know, it looks kind of the same way it looks like from here. Just kind of a regular building without too many bells and whistles. And I think that's kind of what was getting people concerned last time around. So, you know, jumping right in here, you know, this is the idea. You guys want to talk about the economic benefits, and here they are. There are some construction jobs. We're estimating about 20 of them during the 18 to 24-month build period. We're looking at, you know, close to $2 million in wages and benefits, you know, deployed here through a local lender, or sorry, local builder. We're seeing, you know, as the local business owners, we're seeing the effects of RUPCO and, you know, and just all of their workers and all of that economic activity in the city. We feel it. So this, this will only do more of the same, which I think is great in the short term. Long term, we're looking at a co-working space. We had presented this option to the board last time we were here. Potentially, you know, it can generate a lot of economic activity. The operators we've been speaking to talk about, you know, 70 square feet of office space per job created or brought to the downtown area. So that's the math that's bearing out here. And, you know, we think that's going to be great for the downtown Newburgh district. Moving on to, you know, another option is more of a retail, food, office, or, you know, just not co-working, but more of, like I said, a retail or a food establishment. Those are less jobs, but they're still there. They bring economic activity to the downtown. So, you know, we're still, we're leaving the options open to, you know, to the best and highest, the highest and best use for those commercial spaces, but they're commercial and they will net new jobs to downtown Newburgh. I'm going kind of fast because I know it's kind of late, so feel free to just interrupt me, or, you know, we can talk about it at the end. You know, we don't know what the new sales taxable revenue is going to be for this commercial space, but it's going to exist. There are 29 new residents, you know, moving to downtown Newburgh. And that, you know, generates close to 1.8 in, you know, consumer expenditures. So it's just more money to businesses downtown. I think that's ultimately the takeaway from this project. We need assistance, and we're going to kind of dive into the reasons why, and also the criteria that have been identified for why projects should receive assistance, and how this project ticks those boxes. And, you know, we know that the sales tax abatement and the mortgage tax are available. We're counting on those, but really what we need to iron out at this stage is the pilot. Provided that we get the green light next week, the next hurdle is really ironing this out with you guys. So, you know, the website, the Newburgh website is a million times better than it was before. And Cher, I think you have a lot to do with that. So tip of the hat to you. And there's this really handy New York State EDC, that's the Economic Development Council. And it basically tells us what IDA criteria should be when evaluating a project. We fall under commercial housing, which is basically multifamily. And I'm going to zip through these because there's a lot of criteria and we tick all of the boxes, but I just kind of want to make the point. So is there private sector investment? Yes, we're investing over at least $3 million. There's other sources of funding that I wouldn't consider necessarily private sector, but that's no small sum. And we have the commitment of a local builder through Baxter. Again, this jobs and wage number coming back here as a highlight. You know, these are the criteria here on the left. So is there a market study? Yes, it's been commissioned recently, and it's talking about, you know, bringing more net new housing to Newburgh. So this project does that in no uncertain terms. Are we in a highly distressed census tract? The short answer is yes. Is there alignment with local planning and development efforts? There was a vision plan. I think some of you on this Zoom call participated in this visioning in 2018. Here you can see all of the housing goals. There are a lot of them. We tick all of the boxes with the exception of increased home ownership. So, but otherwise, we're ticking those boxes and creating alignment on that front. It's located downtown. Here she is right there in the middle. That's a rendering that we had made, which is kind of cool to see it from that perspective. It's located in areas that have inadequate housing supply. Here's an article by the Chronogram talking about, you know, the challenges of finding affordable housing in the Hudson Valley. Here you have the Lucky Platt building. I'm sure some of you are more familiar with it than I am. But, you know, it's a problem in this country, in this region, in this state, in this county, and in Newburgh. And we're looking to alleviate that inadequacy. You know, it's transit oriented. All of the transit routes come through downtown Newburgh. You know, if you were to commute anywhere, this is where you'd want to live. And then review of the developer's return on investments and the impediments to conventional finance. And, you know, those are outlined in our application. Excuse me. And so we can kind of dig into the dollars and cents of, you know, how much money we're at risk and the total development costs, so on and so forth. But basically, you know, once we get, we've submitted a draft application. There's basically a formal follow-up to it once we get site plan approval, and we'll provide commitments from our lender. And you know, just kind of get ready for the next steps in this process with you guys. But you know, these are all of actually, there's some other best practices that the EDC, sorry, wants us to look at, and you know, we're ticking those boxes too. So the point I'm just trying to make here is that you know, they tell us what they want, and that's what we're delivering. We hope that's in line with what you want. We believe it's in line with what the city of Newburgh wants, what the ARC wants. So there's a lot of desire for this project and what it stands for to become a reality. And so with that in mind, here's the deal that we would like to propose. Can you see, are you guys, oh, here we go. So what can I tell you? Well, basically.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
New net taxes, is that positive? You're saying that's after impacts?
After what, I'm sorry?
Impacts, you know, police, fire, any, is this the gross amount of taxes or?
This is the gross amount of net new taxes.
Okay.
For the first 15 years, then of course it's more, it's a lot more, I suppose. But I think, you know, visually here, what we're trying to present is, you know, currently the gross taxes collectible by the city is $3,000 a year. That's, you know, they're not even being collected because they're owned by, it's owned by a nonprofit currently at the moment. We had a conversation with the assessor, and she reviewed the project, and she told us, you know, if tomorrow you waved your magic wand and your project was had a CO, you would owe me $120,000 a year in taxes. So that's good to know, because that's kind of what happens if we don't find a pilot, I suppose. And then, of course, there's the recently enacted UTEP. The best way to read this chart is red means that the bank will not lend us money because we're paying essentially too much tax. There's not enough income generated by the project to be financially sustainable, and therefore the lender will not lend. So that's the case, year one with the assessor's number, and that's pretty much the case with the UTEP. So we'd like to find a scenario where we have all green, and so this is what we're proposing. We've of course looked at what's been considered from our friends Attic Labs. They kind of have a same project, it's just double the size, minus the commercial. And so, this is the proposal that gets the job done and built and gets the CPC on board to move us forward. After the 15 years, we're in a situation where taxes are unabated and it's 120,000, and 15 years from now it may be a lot more. So that's this is what we would like to get your thoughts on. This is what we would like to put forward, and ultimately this is the next challenge that we have to resolve as partners, I guess I consider ourselves, to move this forward, because we'd like to, get our lenders lined up and get a building permit soon. Charlie, what did I forget to talk about?
Oh, I would just add that when going through those kind of visual aids on the different metrics to look at that, there's a lot of overlap between that and what's suggested in the Newburgh IDA's UTEP, as well as the conditions for deviation, which this would require as well. So when thinking about those criteria, we were kind of thinking about it from 3 different perspectives.
Can I ask a question? Philippe, you had mentioned, which I understand is the case sort of in a lot of conditions, that the value or the rent does not support the taxes. Is that because the rental market, the rates aren't there, or is this held at is the bank not approving it because the rent isn't there, but the bank is also holding the rent at a certain rate so that it can't be there?
No, I don't think there's, I don't think anyone's, pushing, has their thumb on the scale either way. I think generally we're looking at market. These are going to be, it's kind of cool, actually, I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the units are, each unit is gonna have 14-foot ceilings and is gonna have a mezzanine. So above the kitchen and bath is going to be kind of a bedroom or maybe an office area. And so they're not very big. And so you can't really charge a ton of money for them. I think we're looking, between $1,000 and $1,250 for these, but they'll be full of lights, and yeah, you don't get loft spaces like that very often. In historic downtown. So yeah, no, it's pretty much mark to market in my experience.
So are they mostly 1 bedrooms?
Yes.
Or lofts or studios?
Yeah, lofts, 1 bedrooms, yeah.
And
really
so they're
speaks
not
to the
restricted.
density. What's that, sorry?
I'm sorry, so they're not restricted, they are market rate.
No, they're restricted, but they but the restriction is in line with market in our experience. The restriction and the market rate is the same. That's an anomaly of restricted units in Orange County. It's good and it's bad in other ways, but we consider it to be close to market, and in our experience in this location, that's about right.
So are you guys looking for a pilot? And Bob, you may have to tell me how this works, because I guess generally applicants come with a pilot in a certain amount of time frame, where sort of similarly, or to back in, do we look at a pilot with sort of need? Is there sort of a J curve to it, or a point where the rents are support the taxes and the pilot is not necessarily needed or defended anymore? Is there, Bob, an example where something phases out like that, or is it you just have to preemptively decide how long you think that that's going to be, sort of use your magic 8 ball and decide how long the project is going to need a tax pilot?
Usually the applicant proposes what it is suggesting. The IDA can consider that or any other variation of what the applicant proposes. Your current UTEP doesn't address what's, I think, being asked for here, and so you would have to do a deviation and consider what part of a proposal you would consider. Certainly, what is proposed or suggested is not binding on the IDA, and it's really not the IDA's role to provide financial assistance to make the project work. That's up to the developer to figure out how to make it work. Certainly, the IDA could be helpful in considering what the applicant suggests they require by way of financial assistance, either sales tax, mortgage recording tax, or the payment in lieu of tax.
Have you ever seen an example where the condition is set sort of once the project is holding its own water, that the pilot phases out, or do you have to set a time frame up front?
I've never done a project, a pilot agreement like that. I'd have to do a little research, Chrissy, and see if there's any examples in other parts of the state. But in 20 plus years of doing this, I've never done a pilot like that.
I guess I do have one other question. Thank you for showing us your timeline of other agencies and where you guys stand. It sounds like you're pretty close to the end of them. What other approvals do you still need besides ours to get started?
Yeah, we just, well, we need the ARC, and like I said, I think we're bullish. We went back, spent a lot of money, and really responded to the feedback. And planning, I don't expect any hiccups there. So the 20th, basically next week, we would be ready to get your approval essentially. And I know you guys are doing some deviation notification for our friends at the Foundry, and we'd love to piggyback on that.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments for Philippe and Charlie?
Actually, I just would like to also comment, thank you for adding the commercial component.
Yeah, for sure.
That is much appreciated on our end.
Absolutely. I think it'll be great for the corridor. Okay, I think we're in good shape then. Thank you guys for coming and presenting. And I believe, gotta bring this back up. Before we adjourn, guys, we're gonna do, I'm gonna entertain a motion for executive session to discuss the whatever, something leading to the potential hiring, personnel matters, whatever.
Philippe has one more question. Right?
Sorry, not to interrupt, just procedurally,
What happens
can we
next?
get a little bit of a roadmap here? And any, like feedback on the proposal? Our understanding is we have a draft application with you guys. It needs to be firmed up. If this is, I'm pointing at the thing that you can't see anymore on my screen, but if what we showed, proposed is within the realm of possibility, then that's what we would like to submit in the application. If there's specific points of feedback or, lines in the sand not to cross, we'd love to, see those now and avoid them, just so that we know that we're that we have alignment more or less, subject to your review and blah, blah, blah. But so just wanting to know, like, this looks, within the realm of possibility, submit the application, and is the next meeting when we would get a motion for a deviation if everything went well, or just so I kind of know what my timing is, because you guys are next on my things to check off.
Philippe and Charlie, can I ask you, sort of per my previous line of questioning, are there other, so obviously to get these benefits helps the numbers, of course, and there's kind of that tipping point of, the project works, the project doesn't work, with or without these benefits. You obviously have seen our UTEP, and we generally are trying to stay within, a maximum of a 10-year benefit. But to that point, if it's the taxes on the property are kind of the tipping point, and once the rent, comes in line to make the taxes reasonable, or are there other metrics that, and again, this is all assuming that Bob, is able to find, and I don't know if this is, if this is even, there's precedent for this, but we're offering benefits, tax benefits and taxpayer benefits to get the project working and to get the project, off the ground. And, I think that's sort of what we're here for. And beyond that, if there comes a point where, it tips the other way, that it would be reasonable to say, okay, you are now, standing on your own 2 feet, is what are other metrics that get you to that point, or, based on your model, if we can't do as many as 15 years, or, we can frame it, is there another sort of way to make sure that you guys are covered in the metrics that you need covered, but also isn't sort of an open-ended 15-year approval of benefits, if maybe after 7 years your numbers work and you really don't need them anymore. So I guess that's a 2-pronged question for Philippe and Charlie. Are there other things that we can potentially discuss or look at as sort of those tipping points? And then Bob, also, if there is any precedent for this, or is there, in any way, without just approving a certain amount of time, if there's a, almost like commercial leases, depending on how well you're doing, is sort of, what the need for the benefit is or not.
Well, we're asking to get a triple net lease from you guys, right? So you guys are kind of the landlord in this situation. And, you know, yeah, the big metric is debt service coverage ratio. You know, the cash on cash return needs to be at a minimum for an investor to contemplate a risky investment like this. The internal rate of return, which is driven primarily by cash flow return to the investor. All of those, you know, the interest rate available plays a huge factor. The amortization of the debt instrument. Those
are all certainly risk factors. Debt service coverage ratio is certainly
Chrissy, some of this might be better for if you want to have an individual conversation with Philippe and report back to the board.
Well,
That would be
okay, so
helpful.
my point of asking is in terms of his timeline, maybe if there are items that are relative to that so that we can discuss as a board to see what the options are.
So that's sort of my answer to you, Philippe, which is that, you know, we definitely don't grant deviations lightly. Like that's only going to be in a situation where there really is such a significant impact that it warrants the granting of a deviation. I don't think many of people on the board, and they can speak up if they want, are really comfortable saying one way or the other, like tonight, where we would go on that. And based on some of the, you know, Chrissy's asking a number of questions that we just need to discuss before we could really say anything super substantive to you one way or the other. We would have to discuss as a board. So I think a good move might be to have a powwow with Chrissy, and what we'll do is make sure to discuss it. If you know, I would like it to be at the next meeting to figure out, you know, how we fall on it, what kind of direction to give you, that sort of thing.
Well, and again, you don't necessarily need to do I mean, I'm happy to talk to you about it, but just to tell us sort of what that, you know, this is what you're asking for. What is sort of your other metrics that we can potentially, like Austin said, a deviation is a big deal. And so if there are ways that we can deviate that we are more comfortable with versus, you know, just a hard line in the sand, we need 15 years of these benefits for us to be able to defend, you know, asking taxing jurisdictions and the taxpayers to do this, you know, that what your push and pull is, if you can put that down and let us know so that we can discuss it, you know, as a board. And Bob, again, maybe I'm totally out of line and maybe there's no precedent for this, and we just say we just have to pick a number of years that we think we're comfortable with that would achieve you know, getting on your feet ability.
My recommendation, and we will take a look at it, but my recommendation would always be that you pick a standard. If you're not doing a set number of years, which is obviously the typical, that you would pick a standard that would be an objective standard that would be very clear. You know, if you reach X, then Y, okay, and that it's not subject to subjective interpretation, that it's
right.
very, very clear that if you achieve X level, then this happens. And I can look and see, I have never done an IDA pilot with that, but we can certainly take a look and see if we can find examples. But just by way of experience, again, I've been doing this a long time. I would recommend some sort of objective standard that they come up with.
Great, so thank you for that. And yeah, didn't want to suggest that a deviation, was given out freely, but I do want to point out that, the objective criteria that are put forth by the EDC, we meet all of them.
So if you want to, obviously you're free to speak to Chrissy, but if you want to send me or send us that PowerPoint as well, and we'll take a look at that, and then we can reach out to the board members as well.
Great. And so is it, just last question, is it out of the Can we contemplate a motion to submit the deviation to the taxing authorities next meeting, or is that highly unlikely?
I think before I'm going to jump in as the attorney here and be the bad guy. I think the board can't really consider that until the application becomes final.
Sure,
okay.
I understand.
So right now, as you've said a couple of times, you've submitted an application. It's sort of in draft. You haven't made your final request. You need to make that final request.
Okay.
And then the board can go from there.
Okay, great. Well, so you guys know that's exactly what we'll be doing. We're focusing on those other approvals. So next week after Tuesday, we're focusing on this. Cher will be in touch, and Bob with you as well. And I hope the presentation was clear and to the point. And thank you very much for your time. I know it's very late at this point. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for the presentation.
Okay. So I will take a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. Sherry, you're gonna have to share whatever with me because we'll just dismiss everybody else, right?
Do you need us or no?
No, that's right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Did we get
Okay.
a motion to go into executive?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Was Adam the second? Sorry.
Gregory, or Michael.
I think we all were at some point.
Okay,
It's my turn.
Bob is staying, or
No, I'm gonna go, but if you guys need me, you know how to reach me.
Executive session, and Gregory seconded it.
Mike and then Greg.
And then it was unanimous. There was no abstentions, whatever.
Nobody was abstaining.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Nancy.
Greg, you wanted to do it.
Who's second?
Got to beat Quick Draw McMike down there.
Gregory.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, abstaining, motion carried. See you guys. Thank you very much.